afternoon. Welcome to the Chat with the Mayor Demings session. Welcome, Mayor Demings.
Good morning.
Or it is morning, good morning. So, Mayor Jerry L. Demings was sworn in on December 4th, 2018 as the 5th elected mayor of Orange County and is the first African American to serve in that role. Always a trailblazer, Mayor Demings became Orlando's first African-American police chief in 1998 and was elected the first African-American county sheriff in 2008, was re-elected in 2012, and again in 2016. As an Orlando native, Mayor Demings is married to the former police chief and now Congresswoman, Val Demings. They have 3 sons, all graduates of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, FAMU, whose homecoming is this weekend,
That's
actually.
Right.
A lifelong public servant, Mayor Demings is a graduate of Jones High School,
All right.
Florida State University,
All right, sorry, Gators.
and Orlando College. Mayor Demings has a passion for working with organizations that support children and volunteers and serves on several nonprofit boards. Mayor Demings' goal is to make Orange County the experimental prototype community of tomorrow by creating a community of culture, innovation, collaboration, and inclusiveness. So I want to start there, Mayor Demings. What is a culture of innovation, collaboration, and inclusiveness?
All right, Jason, let me first start by saying again, good morning to all of you. It's an honor to be here. I feel like I'm Mr. Rogers today in the neighborhood, talking to all of our neighbors here in Orange County, and I have to acknowledge Jason as well. Jason and his staff that really does all of our community engagement for Orange County. They do really a phenomenal job. They're a very, very competent team of individuals. So join me in giving the staff a round of applause. They do the heavy lifting, but in terms of innovation, collaboration, and inclusiveness, in 2017-18, when I was running for mayor, I had the opportunity to really travel throughout the county. I had over 1,000 different meetings, debates, forums, et cetera, that I attended during that period of time. And from that experience, the residents of Orange County demonstrated to me what the priorities should be for our administration. And one of the things that certainly is important to us is innovation. As we are a growing community with a net of nearly 1,500 new people who move to the region on a weekly basis, about 1,000 new people move to Orange County each week on average, I should say. With that, what I'm really all about doing is trying to uplift our entire community by creating new technologies and innovation, because that will uplift the overall average wages here in our community. So we want to be, again, in the words of Walt Disney, he said that he wanted to create this community where it would be the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. If you are like me and you remember watching the cartoon The Jetsons, it was that futuristic looking place on planet Earth where people had the opportunity to talk on cellular phones and they could see the person on the other end of the line. Well, we are now at that point in time. We don't quite yet have flying automobiles, but maybe one day we will. But we're trying to create this community where there's a convergence of technology, culture from all over the world, and be that type of place where everyone will want to come and visit and want to live in. And so we can only do that through collaboration. In order to keep our talent here, the pipeline of young people continuing to stay here after they learn a skill or they go to college or they come back from the university, what they're looking for is that type of experience where they have employment with high wages, and also where they can have a cultural experience of the arts coming together. So that's why my administration will be all about innovation, collaboration, and inclusiveness.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. So you've been in office a few months now, several months, and you have announced a couple big things so far. One of them being the Housing for All Task Force and one, the Transportation Funding Initiative. If you wouldn't mind touching on both of those, please.
Yes. In terms of housing, there's been a lot of research in this area, but sadly I have to report that out of all of the households within Orange County has over 1.3 million, almost approaching 1.4 million permanent residents that live here. 75 million visitors come here on an annual basis, and that has created a lot of stress for our community. In terms of housing, we have 110,000 households that have been identified as being chronically rent stressed. What that means is that if you take their total household income, you should not be paying more than 30% of that total income for rent payments. Well, we have 110,000 households who are paying well above that now. Because of high rent, when we see housing units that are being developed here in this community, they're coming in the market space at $350,000, $400,000. Well, quite frankly, at that price point, that is really not attainable for most of the people who live in our county. And so now we have this missing middle of people who are middle income earners who can't afford that price point. And then we have people who are low wage earners who can't afford the average rent at two-bedroom apartment at $1,200, $1,400 a month. So what we have endeavored to do is to really address that issue, to get builders and developers to add a different product into our mix here in this community, where there's a lower price point, perhaps with a smaller square footage, to get builders to produce this. We want to create some incentives for them through our regulatory approaches, so that when they apply for building permits, we want to get them through the process faster. We want to incentivize the opportunity for them to create that. And so you're going to see with our Housing for All Task Force, which is a group of 39 individuals who are volunteers who represent all walks of life. They have been meeting now for about 6 months. They are individuals, one of which formerly was homeless in the community. We have students from UCF that are part of that commission. We also have people who are professionals, some architects, some engineers, and building contractors. We have some people from financial services, some bankers. We have some nonprofit representation there, individuals who build homes through Habitat for Orange County and Orlando and Seminole County that are part of that task force. So collectively what they're doing is they're taking their certain expertise and experiences and coming together to make recommendations to us about what we can change in how we plan for housing for all here within this community. They should wrap up their work during the first week of November and come forward with a presentation to the Board of County Commission. We will then take that, and the board will have to make some decisions about using funding where we may create a housing trust fund that could be used to assist individuals with down payment assistance, et cetera, to ensure that they can get into apartments or homes that they can afford. And then we're doing some creative things where we will look at the surplus lands that Orange County owns and see if we can put together some type of public-private partnership between a developer and the county lands to offer a product that is centers of commerce and that we can locate transportation, access to transportation in a particular community and connect them together. We endeavor to be a world-class community here. And when you think of all of the world-class cities across the world, the London, Englands, and places like that, the New York cities, one thing that they all have in common is they have a mass transit system. We do not have a mass transit system that really connects us. If we did, we would be able to lower the average cost of transportation for the individuals who live here. And so if you have moved in the outlying areas of the county, or you're living in some neighboring counties, Lake County, Osceola County, many of them drive into Orange County to come to work because that's where most of the jobs in the region today are really located. Well, when they do that, they have a transportation expense. If they own an automobile, the expense of owning that automobile and operating that automobile, the liability insurance, and the higher that cost is, the less money you have also to be able to have the discretionary income to buy other things. And so we want to lower the cost of transportation. We want to get people out of cars into a mass transit system so that we can improve our carbon footprint here. That's an environmental, I think, aspiration that we have to do better in terms of all of those issues about global warming and the like. So you're going to see all of those types of initiatives coming forward from Orange County, where we are trying to make decisions today for generations that are not yet born. And in order to do that, we need the collective input of our residents who are here now. And so we want to be visionaries, and I always say that a visionary is someone who anticipates the need for something before it's needed, and they take action in a timely manner. And so my leadership style is one where I'm envisioning that if we do nothing with our transportation system to improve it, it's going to get worse. And then people will look at the leadership here and say, how did this happen? So we got the traffic congestion problem that we have now. So I'm being very bold to say that in order to move the needle, it won't take tens of millions of dollars for us to create a well-connected transportation system. It will take billions of dollars. And so in November of 2020, it is my desire to put forth a ballot initiative where we will have a dedicated funding source to be able to build this robust, complex transportation network here to address issues like the shortage of Lynx buses that we have. Lynx has not been adequately funded for decades now, and they are part of this system of transportation and transit connectivity. We likely need to double the size of the Lynx fleet so that working class people can get to work. They can be able to have extended hours of operations. Sunrail, we have just the spine, if you will, of a mass transit system. In order for people to ride Sunrail and to see themselves in the storyline about what Sunrail potentially can become here in this community, it has to have additional connectivities. It must go east and west. What we don't know now is whether that should be a rail, a light rail, a monorail, a maglev, or a rubber tire solution where it is connected to the eastern part of the county and the western part of the county. But this transportation tax that I'm suggesting that we're going to ask you all to vote for in November 2020 is the type of bold thinking that will bring in approximately $600 million on an annual basis. And if we put it in place for 10 years, you can see that it would bring in over time billions of dollars. If it's 20 years, again, billions of dollars. And the per capita, the individual increase that you will be paying collectively through a sales tax of 1 penny, we're trying to understand what that cost will be per person. Rough guesstimate has been that it will be under, on an annualized basis, under like $120 per person. So we have economists who are working to try to perfect that number, and so you will hear more about it. But the beauty of the sales tax is it won't be totally on the backs of the people who live here, because over 51% of the sales tax revenues will be paid by the people who are coming here to visit. So rather than put the monkey totally on the backs of the people who live here, if I said I'm going to champion a property tax increase, well, that would be totally on the backs of the people who live here, and we would leave out the 75 million who are coming here to visit. So it's really, I think, the right balance for us. And even if we increase property taxes by a full meal, we do here in Orange County have one of the lowest millage rates in the region today. Our millage rate is less than those in the surrounding counties of Lake and Orange, not Orange, but Osceola and Seminole County. Our millage rate is lower. Our millage rate is lower than the city of Orlando by some distance, actually. And so we haven't raised property taxes in over 30 years. I don't intend to be the one to say we're going to raise property taxes. And even if we raise property taxes by a full meal, it would bring in about $144 million on an annual basis versus $600 million. So a lot I just threw at you there, Jason. It was a long way to answer your question, but I'm trying to make sure that you all kind of understand the philosophy, the theory behind what we're trying to do here in this community.
And I have a couple, or actually one question I think dovetails with that. You spoke about environmental issues in regards to transportation. In regards to sustainability, what are some of your plans for Orange County government in this community?
We are looking to really hire a person that will be on point, that will be our Chief Sustainability and Resiliency Officer. In order to make certain that this becomes a practice, a custom for Orange County, we have plans for sustainability to do a better job of taking care of God's green earth. But if we don't have someone on point that is focused on that on a day-to-day basis, both internal to the county and external, where they're working with our community, what we're trying to do is make sure that we are preserving Florida's natural habitat. We're making certain that we look at alternative modes of transportation, that we look at alternative fuel sources as well when we build buildings, that we are not continuing to worsen the air quality in our area and the likes. So that takes institutionalizing a certain way of doing business. And so what I want is someone to be on point for that. One of the innovations that we have here in Orange County occurs right here at this convention center. We have some hydroponic plants and cabbages and other things that's being grown like on rooftops here using alternative solar energy to do so, and they take that and they use it in the food that is served here at the convention center. And so we want to expand those types of initiatives that we have within Orange County. Orange County has 497 buildings that it manages, that are county facilities. Well, we want to make certain that within the county's network of facilities that we are using green initiatives that are sustainable over long periods of time where we can save money. Getting people out of cars is something that we can improve. The emissions, from automobiles, if they are gasoline powered, that impacts our air quality, et cetera. And so we are seeing now more electric vehicles that are entering the market space. It is projected that in the next 25 years, every automobile that will be produced in America will likely have some autonomous, self-driving capabilities. But again, if we simply replace the current fossil fuel powered automobiles with an electric vehicle, we really wouldn't have moved the needle in terms of reducing traffic congestion on our highways. So it has to be a larger discussion, more about the movement of large masses of people more efficiently throughout our community. So you're going to hear more about this in the coming months.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. So looking more internally, and when I say internally, that's Orange County government, you've expressed your desire to bring the minimum full-time hourly rate for Orange County employees to $15 per hour. Can you discuss why that is important to you and the example that it's setting to this community?
Yes. Here in Florida, minimum wage is $8.25. Federally, in the United States of America, minimum wage is $7.25. You heard me talk a little bit already about people not being able to afford a place to live. If we don't get wages up, we're going to see an increase in the number of homeless families, not just individuals, but families in our community. Orange County government works in a competitive market space, labor market space. In order for us to retain talent, attract talent to Orange County, we have to pay a competitive wage. We have seen now in the theme parks, Disney was one of the first to announce that it intends to, within the next 2 years, have all of its employees make a minimum of $15 an hour. Orange County government was the first county government to announce that we wanted to pay all of our full-time employees a minimum of $15 an hour. Why? Because as our employees who work for the taxpayers, I think it's important for us to kind of lead by example. It's important for us to create pathways for our employees to be able to move up within Orange County government, go to school, improve their skills, their education. And so that means that we have to adjust to the market space that we're in order to remain competitive. So we have a very, I think, measured approach to increasing our wages, and we said that we would do it over time. And so our fiscal year just began October the 1st, and so in the next fiscal year, we would have moved all of our employees to that minimum of $15 an hour. And so I hope that's good news. What has happened now, Mayor Dyer, the city of Orlando, has announced, we didn't say to the private sector, to small businesses and other businesses, you must do this. We have not done that. But what we have said is that we encourage them to consider that as well, because quite frankly, if they don't, they're not going to be able to retain their employees. We want to create the kind of community also where we create an entrepreneurial spirit. I have always felt that if I didn't have a job, if I couldn't find a job, I would make a job for myself. I would go into business and try to take care of my family. I saw my father and my mother struggle, and they did that. My mother is from North Florida. She graduated from high school, but came here and she basically did days work. She cleaned houses for a living and helped to take care of her family. My dad was a taxi cab driver. My father he's from Alabama. He is still living. He's 97 years old. He turned 97 on September the 12th. But I saw my father, in order to make ends meet for the family, he had this entrepreneur spirit. At one point, he owned a little fish market. He owned a little small convenience store, but he drove taxi cabs 7 days a week, and he did all these other things. Because he worked so hard, what he had done was he created these little businesses to help bring in income for the family, which meant that he wasn't home often. So my siblings and I, we sometimes miss, my father being there in that regard. So personally, I feel like, well, I learned from him that I would never starve as long as I was able-bodied. If I couldn't find a job, I would mow lawns if I had to. I would wash dishes and do those other things. And I did some of that over time. But I was fortunate that because of their hard work, they ensured that I got a good education. I was able to go to college and get multiple degrees, and I have been able to use that to take care of my family. And all of my children, as you heard, are now college graduates. My 3 sons They all seem to be doing fairly well. As far as I know, none of them have ever been arrested, charged with crimes. I think if they had been, you might even know about it. So my wife and I, we're on this crusade as public servants, to make sure that we work in partnership with our community to ensure that every child who has a desire to be able to go to school or learn a skill, that they have that opportunity. And so that's what we're trying to create here within Orange County through partnerships with our local school district, with our labor unions, with our trades unions, et cetera, to make certain that they are able to earn a decent living.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. So you've heard enough from me, certainly, and I could certainly keep asking questions of Mayor Demings, but what I would like is to hear from you all. That's the chat with the mayor. There are at least two people there are two microphones positioned here. So if you have questions, I ask that you come to the microphone, respectfully and briefly ask your question, and then you have the mayor here to address those questions, realizing that he might not be able to answer every question to the detail that you want, but there is an Orange County government with staff there who can answer those questions.
And so let me do something also. Whenever I go places after nearly 4 decades of being a law enforcement officer, I was used to taking backup wherever I go. So I have backup here today, but I also have one of our Orange County commissioners that I recognize, Commissioner Christine Moore, is here. Do we have any of our other county commissioners who are present?
They'll be with us in the luncheon, Mayor
Okay,
Demings.
so if I can't answer these questions, I am certain that Commissioner Moore can answer them. She formerly served on the school board for a number of years, I think 8 to 10 years, and she's an expert within her own rights in various areas. So, all right, any questions?
Okay. To the mic, Miss Bell, to the microphone, yes.
Didn't want to be the first one, but since the second one is waiting. Question. I'm president of the Pine Hill Seniors. My name is Sheila Bell. And we started out with 5 seniors in terms of a planning committee. The group has grown rapidly and is continuing to grow. We are now 100. However, we are a voluntary organization, and as we look ahead and see the need, and a need for planning not only to sustain this growth, but to allow seniors to feel and know and see that they are a vital group in this community, and will continue to serve with their time, talent, and everything they have. Therefore, my question is, in terms of Orange County government, how do they plan to help with this sustained growth?
Okay, so let me ask you a question first. What qualifies one to be a senior?
Okay. You may go with ARP 50 plus. You may go with the government statistics in terms of Social Security, 62 and up. So anywhere within that range.
Okay.
Plus, if you say you're a senior, we accept you as a senior.
Okay. I figured I better qualify that. It's more than just having gray hair, in other words, right? So given what you just laid out, I guess in some ways I fit in that category of being a senior. But yes, Orange County, we have various senior advisory groups that we try to make certain are intertwined within the moral fabric of our county and our community. So I look for opportunities to appoint individuals. What I would encourage you to do is, if you go to the Orange County's website, or even if you aren't able to access the web, sometimes if you just call 311, you're able to get information about county services. But there are various volunteer opportunities. If you have a passion for something, I would say when you look at the various opportunities to be a part of the different advisory groups, you select one and you can fill out the application online, or you can go to any of our neighborhood community centers, and they will work with you to complete those applications and be part of it. I want your input and to make certain that we are providing the kind of services that we should. Now, throughout the county, we have these neighborhood centers and different programs that we run. And as you know, they're within the Pine Hills area because of your leadership, Ms. Bell, and others who have a passion for this community. We're doing all types of extraordinary things. I even see like Russell Kilgore, a retired deputy sheriff. He's very active in his community as a senior and gives input as well. So we're going to continue to do that. And I can assure you that every one of our county commission districts and the commissioners within them, they too look for seniors to be part of the advisory group to make sure that we're providing the kind of service that you want us to provide to you. Okay?
And Ms. Bell
Yes.
is being very modest. That Pine Hills Seniors group is quite a robust group. In fact, they recently reinstalled a community garden at the Pine Hills Community Center, which serves not only the seniors, but the students at Head Start. So this group is doing quite a bit in this community, and it, to me, is an example of an exemplary group not bound by seniors. If you are accepting gray hair, I have some, and I would love to be a part of your group, Ms. Bell.
You will be welcome. In addition to that, the Office on Aging at this point, I think, is staffed by only one person. And so for this growth that is taking place and this need to service that is occurring, we would recommend looking into it in terms of staffing.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
we'll Jason is our manager over the program, and so I listen to our managers to kind of have this kind of interaction with our community. So thank you for your input.
And we can go here.
Good afternoon, Mayor Demings. Good to see you. I'm Michael King from the Hiawassee Oaks Homeowners Association. And I'm just curious on how you plan on implementing higher density housing developments without other homes losing their value while implementing that same kind of making medium or lower income homes at the same time without into communities that exist already without those communities losing their value.
I think that's where we have to look at mixed-use developments where it is interspersed with retail, it's interspersed with units that are at market as opposed to having all the units maybe at below market. We don't want to create a community where everyone that lives in the community, let's say, is indicative of low-income housing. But when you have mixed uses, retail, commercial, residential, and you mix the housing stock within it, I think it makes it more desirable, and it makes it more about a sense of community when people are able to, regardless of their income level, they're able to live in a community and be part of that community. And that's this part of the inclusion that we talked about as opposed to exclusion. Sometimes, quite frankly, we do hear from some neighborhoods that they perceive when you talk about workforce housing, they think about in terms of the old terminology that, well, that's a housing project. We don't want a housing project in our area. But if it's a high quality development that is in a walkable space, that is well connected, what you'll see is that those property values will remain high, and it will be the kind of place that everybody wants to live. And so that's what we have to do as we kind of manage our comprehensive plans here within this community. I believe if we get it right, if we're able to manage the high density locations, it really can result in the preservation of even the rural areas. If we have a true transportation network here, it allows for the rural, those neighborhoods that want to maintain that rural, low-density character, they're able to do so. But I can tell you in terms of the millennials and the younger groups who are entering our workspace now, that's the largest demographic we have in the United States of America, are millennials. That's the largest portion of our workforce. And many of them like high density. They want to live in communities that look like maybe downtown Orlando. If you look at the renaissance that is occurring in downtown and the redevelopment efforts, it's bustling with young people who want to live close to where they work. They want to be able to play. There's one of the important amenities for high density is a dog park now. They want to have a dog. They might not want to have a child, but they want a pet. And they're going to take those pets to those dog parks. That's one of the amenities they look for with their apartments. So in terms of our planning teams are making sure that we understand that. And then we can, again, you can have within one area, one community, you won't even know in many cases who makes what, but it's the beauty of everybody coming together.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right.
And we have one of our other commissioners that just came in, Commissioner Myra Uribe.
Afternoon, Mayor. I have one little question. With all the new developments, the way you want to build the housing, low-income housing, what happens, what kind of a placement can you put on the people that, especially if it's a company that's owning it, to keep it as a low-income housing? Because, okay, saying the job rate goes up a little bit, $15 an hour, that gives somebody the idea that, okay, raise the rent. And that's what happens in low-income housing. A year after they've been there, rents go up.
Well,
and then the apartments become empty because they can't keep them.
sometimes in order for a developer or builder to receive tax credits, those tax credits sometimes are 30-year, 40-year tax credits. And there are federal and state requirements for a minimum number of the units within that complex that have to remain subsidized, if you will, and then others can be at market. So really, when a developer works in partnership to receive government taxpayer dollars, we have some stringent requirements where we have them on the hook for decades. And so last year, actually it was this year, it was in May, the last legislative session, the Florida House passed House Bill 7103 that says that essentially if local governments require these developers to diversify the product that they're making, that we have to somehow make them whole, essentially, through our public processes, our permitting processes, et cetera. And so with that is going forward, all of that has to be taken into consideration. But we do have, what I'm saying to you is we have the opportunity to incentivize developers to keep it a mixed-use facility, a mixed market facility in one location for decades.
What happens if they sell it to another agency?
If they receive the monies, again, part of the restrictions, the requirements, it stays with the property.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Demings. Jason, you did a great job today.
Thank you.
My question involves the environment. I'm very concerned when I see all the clear cutting of our trees. And I know recently, well, maybe last year, there was a forum that Orange County had about our trees. But it seems it's being ignored. And one of the prime examples is out at 417 and 528, where the wetlands have been clear cut. Now they're sitting empty. and we wonder why we have so much wildlife in our backyards that don't belong there, and it's because we're destroying their habitat. What is Orange County going to do to stop developers from going in and clear cutting? This is why we wind up with flooding in our neighborhoods.
Orange County, you know, we have comprehensive plans that take into consideration various land use and the restrictions if it's wetlands and what have you. And if through our regulatory processes, if a development is approved and there's any issues with the removal of trees, we do have a fund where developers are required to put money into the fund that to replace trees. Wow, you know. Somebody leaned on the light switch there somewhere. I know, you know, while you're talking about the environment, we're trying to conserve energy.
There you go.
But not like that.
Are they LED lights?
Yes, and you know, in terms of our green buildings, Orange County has our facilities management group team. They evaluate our energy plans and try to look at transitioning to, you know, better lighting systems that conserve energy, et cetera. So I'm sure that was. Which one of you all leaned on that light like that? Okay, they're pointing at each other. But we do, as it relates to trees, yes, we have plans, and do we get it right every time? Probably not. And we do find sometimes that, you know, as we develop, we have some unintended consequences sometimes of our actions. But again, you heard me talk about making sure that we have someone on point. I don't know, when the lights went out, did the cameras go off? I see them. Okay, they're giving that to you.
Okay.
Okay. So again, that's all part of our long-term strategy, is to make certain that the sustainability plan that we have in place, that we're actually executing everything that we have in that plan. And it's not something that just simply sits on the shelf. We have a 2040 plan, and it's up on our website. I would encourage you to read it. It kind of gives you the blueprint for how we will move forward to address all those issues that you're talking about.
Because right now, the area that I mentioned, 417 and 528, that property was clear cut over a year ago, and that's wetlands. And it's just sitting there. They cut down cypress hammocks, and that were sustainable for wildlife. And that property now is just barren.
So we'll have to look into the specifics of that. We'll take some notes, because I'm not sure. You know, sometimes, every now and then, we find where a developer has done something and it wasn't approved. They didn't have the appropriate permits from the water management districts or from the county or from the state to do what they've done. But we have a series of experts who are supposed to be on top of that. So, you know, if we'll get all the information. My chief of staff, Roseanne Harrington, is here. Roseanne, if you'll stand up. Roseanne is somewhat of an expert in terms of energy, et cetera. She retired from the Orlando Utilities Commission as a senior VP, which is one of the reasons why I reached out to her, so that my office kind of has someone right within the mayor's office itself to work with other county staff. So she's here. One of our other commissioners just came in, Commissioner Maribel Gomez Cordero. All right, thank you very much for your question.
So we have about probably maybe 8 to 7 minutes now, and we have 3 questions. So I'm hoping we can wrap up those 3 questions and the responses within that time. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
It's so nice to see you. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on your efforts in the area of affordable housing. I attended your meeting yesterday and saw the wonderful task force you have of all of the professional individuals. And I think that's great because you're going to get ideas from them. However, I would like to ask you if you are going to have, through your county commissioners or your communications people, come out into the community and let us know what you have in mind or what they have suggested for our area as it relates to affordable housing.
Yes, we will engage an expert, a marketing expert. Once the Housing for All Task Force completes its work, there will be a board workshop with the Board of County Commission where they will present to the board their recommendations. The board will then have the opportunity to take action. Some of what they are going to recommend will require amendments to ordinances or to current comprehensive land use plans that we have within the county. Some of it may require simply an amendment to county policy, and the Board of County Commission kind of sets the policy and the legislative efforts for the county. Once we get agreement from the Board of County Commission, we will likely engage a marketing person that will help us perfect the messaging to our community about the plan and how we will move forward with that plan of action. The plan that we have is very focused on up through 2030, but it really should go on beyond that. But what we're trying to do is within the next 10 years, produce an additional 30,000 units. Even with that, that still leaves us significantly short of where we would need to be. But the solution to the housing challenge cannot purely be on the backs of the public sector, government. It has to have private sector engagement, and it has to have engagement with the nonprofit sector as well in order to thoroughly address the challenges that we have going forward. I believe that it's probably a 20 or 30 year period of time in order to play catch up, but we are endeavoring to kind of deal with some of the low-hanging fruit. We're trying to pick that as quickly as we can. The Board of County Commission will play a significant role in doing that. So including things like amending policies related to having accessory dwelling units in certain neighborhoods where the neighbors want that. We have it now in certain neighborhoods. This is where you may have a granny flat, a garage apartment or something on your property. But I can tell you from the last public discussion that we had on this issue with the Board of County Commission, the commission was concerned about ensuring that you have an owner on the property so that someone is kind of overseeing what's going on that property, as opposed to, let's say you have a main house and then you have a garage apartment and no owner is there. And neighbors become very concerned about that in terms of producing densities. But we have neighborhoods, College Park and some other areas where you see this model significantly, and those are neighborhoods that really are thriving. And so we want to make certain that it's appropriate to the neighborhood in question. So you're going to see some policies, I think, come out with all of those types of things as well.
Thank you.
So I learned a while ago you don't delay a session before lunch. And I realize I'm getting the signal. We have 4 minutes. So I'm hoping we can wrap up these two questions, get some closing remarks from Mayor Demings, and then we'll carry on to lunch.
Thank you,
No
Mayor.
pressure.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for answering our questions. You mentioned the Housing Task Force, but you did not mention the Sadowski Fund. And
yes.
Yes. And I know that's a major portion of, and it's being rated continuously. I live in affordable housing, and I can tell you we're all worried about the rent increases, and we're all worried about the future of our housing. So if you could address the Sadowski Fund.
Okay, the Sadowski Trust Fund is a fund that was set up to address Florida's deficit of housing that is affordable workforce housing. And on every real estate transaction that occurs, a portion goes from that transaction goes into the state fund. Well, for the last several decades, the governor and the legislature, rather than using those funds on housing, they have diverted those funds for various uses. In 2018, they diverted the funds to school safety after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting. And this past legislative session, the funds were primarily diverted to deal with the aftermath of the hurricane that drastically impacted the Panhandle, and it didn't go for the entire state. We are monitoring that. Our advocacy in Tallahassee will continue to ensure that we get our fair share of those funds that were intended for these purposes that we have talked about for housing. So the short answer is we are monitoring that, and we will be in Tallahassee trying to get some funds back for our community. Okay.
Mayor Demings, my name is Fraser Howe. I'm a 31-year resident here in Southwest Orlando. Thank you for your continued service to our county. I'm also a professional engineer, and I support your transportation initiatives for new and improved transportation. But all of that's going to run on the back of our existing transportation system. State statute allows Florida counties to levy up to 12 cents of fuel tax. Several counties do, but Orange County is not yet one of them. I would ask that the county seriously consider an increase in the local option gas tax as a ballot amendment in 2020.
Okay, let me just quickly respond to that. Orange County could increase to the maximum that it could under the local option gas tax. The local option gas tax revenues have been at best static. Over time, they really have declined because this is whenever you fuel up your automobiles, you pay a tax to that. If we went up to the max, it would bring in an additional $27 million. $27 million, I don't mean to scoff at that, but in terms of being transformational, not enough money to do a mass transit system. It's woefully short. We need, you heard me say, we don't need tens of millions, we need billions of dollars. And so the other thing that is about the local option gas tax is that it's a decline in, somewhat of a decline in revenue because our automobiles are becoming more fuel efficient. They are becoming more electric. They're hybrid vehicles. The more that happens is the fewer people are actually putting gasoline in their automobiles. And so all of that has impacted that as a true revenue source. And those buckets of money, when we have it taken into our budget, they're restricted. They can only be used for like roadways types of projects, et cetera. And that's about maintaining pretty much what we have. So they're giving us a sign that we're out of time. Hopefully, I'd love to talk to you kind of offline a little bit more about it. But thank you all for being here. Hopefully this has been instructive.
Very quickly before we close, there are blue cards on which are evaluations. If you have something nice today to say, fill out the card. If you don't, just put the card back in your box. Join me again in thanking Mayor Demings for sitting down with us and having this conversation.